Good morning, children, and welcome back to our lesson, The Little Girl by Catherine Mansfield. In the previous class, we have seen that the little child, Kezia, was punished by the parents. She was punished by the parents. Why? Because she had torn into pieces the paper that the father had prepared to give a speech, and she did it in order to make a pincushion to be given as a present for her father's birthday. Neither the father nor the mother knew the intention of the little child in tearing the paper into pieces. So she was given the punishment, and she was even beaten up. Now, let's continue with the lesson. Then she decided there were different sorts of fathers. One sort of father is the father of Kezia, and another sort of father is the father of the McDonalds. Suddenly one day, mother became ill, and she and grandmother went to hospital. So it happened one day that the mother had to go to the hospital with her grandmother because she felt ill. The little girl was left alone in the house with Alice, the cook. So, who is Alice? Alice is the cook, and the little girl was all alone in the house with Alice. That was all right in the daytime, but while Alice was putting her to bed, she grew suddenly afraid. During the daytime, she felt all right to be with Alice, but as it was getting darker, as the time came for her to go to sleep, she grew afraid. "What will I do if I have a nightmare?" she asked. "I often have nightmares, and then Granny takes me into her bed. I can't stay in the dark. It all gets whispery." So, the child is afraid of sleeping in the dark. The child is afraid of sleeping in the dark because she used to have nightmares. And whenever she had nightmares, the grandmother used to come to her bed and take her to her bed. You know a nightmare? A nightmare is a bad dream. Okay? It is a bad dream. Sometimes you cannot move, you cannot shout. You shout, but your voice is not heard. So that is a bad dream. "You just go to sleep, child," said Alice, pulling off her socks, "and don't you scream and wake your poor pa." See, Alice the cook says that she should not wake poor pa, poor father, by her shouts. Shouts? Why is she going to shout? She may shout when she gets nightmares. So Alice the cook says that she should not shout and wake poor father. It means Alice has got a sympathy towards father. The little child is afraid of the father, but Alice has got a sympathy towards her father. She says, "Poor pa." But the same old nightmare came. The butcher with a knife and a rope, who came nearer and nearer, smiling that dreadful smile, while she could not move, could only stand still, crying out, "Grandma, Grandma." So the nightmare came. What was a nightmare? The nightmare was the picture of a butcher. You know, a butcher. A butcher is a person who kills, who cuts meat, who kills and cuts meat. Okay, so he sees a picture of a butcher, and look at the look of the butcher. He has a rope in his hand. He would come nearer and nearer, and he would wear a smile, but not a pleasant smile. It's a dreadful smile. And then she will not be able to move. She could only stand. She could only shout, "Grandma, Grandma." She woke shivering to see father beside her bed, a candle in his hand. "What's the matter?" he said. "So father is there." When she shouted, "What's the matter?" "Oh, a butcher, a knife. I want Granny." He blew out the candle, bent down and caught up the child in his arms, carrying her along the passage to the big bedroom. Now, children, this is very odd. When somebody is screaming out of fear, you call out your parents, especially a child. But this child, Kezia, is calling out her grandma, because in the house we have seen that grandma is very soft and sympathetic towards her. She is full of love. Okay, so she says, "Grandma, I want grandma." Now, the father blew out the candle and took her in his arms and carried her to the big bedroom of his. A newspaper was on the bed. A half-smoked cigar was near his reading lamp. So obviously the father had been reading a newspaper. He put away the paper, threw the cigar into the fireplace, and carefully tucked up the child. So the father is making all kinds of preparations to put the child to sleep. Half asleep still with the butcher's smile all about her, it seemed, she crept close to him, snuggled her head under his arm, held tightly to his shirt. So, what happens now? Kezia is carried by the father. She was taken in his arms and carried to his bed, and she was made to sleep, and she nestled against the father, holding the shirt very tightly. Then the dark did not matter. She lay still. See, this is a change in her. She had said that she could not stand darkness. She is afraid of darkness. She can't stay in the dark. But now, with the father near her, she doesn't bother whether it is dark or not. Then the dark did not matter. She lay still. "Here, rub your feet against my legs and get them warm," said father. So father is showing now some concern for Kezia. He says, "Your feet are cold, rub them against my legs." Tired out, he slept before the little girl. A funny feeling came over her. Poor father, not so big after all, and with no one to look after him. Now look here. The father is tired. So before the child slept, he slept. And the child is so understanding, she is so matured, she says that the father was not looking so big after all, with no one to look after her. Before there was mother always behind her father. The father would be ordering about, and the mother would be running here and there, trying to give him everything he demands. But now, with no one in the house, the father is looking very small, and he's not the giant figure that Kezia had thought he was. With no one to look after him, he was harder than grandmother, but it was a nice hardness. Yes, you remember the softness of the grandmother, but it was a different feeling. The father was very hard muscles, unlike grandma's soft bodies. But she enjoyed the hardness. It was a nice hardness. And every day he had to work and was too tired to be a MacDonald. She had torn up all his beautiful writing. She stirred suddenly and sighed. Now she understands the father. Before there was a kind of regret that the father was not behaving like the MacDonalds, like Mr. MacDonald who played with the children. She was almost jealous of the fun the MacDonalds had. But now she understands her father. She understands that father is working so hard that he had no time to play with her. He is a different sort of a father. And then she remembered how she tore up the paper, the very important paper, which was a speech to be given by the father. And now she sighs. She realizes her mistake. "What's the matter?" asked her father. "Another dream?" "Oh," said the little girl, "my head's on your heart, and I can hear it going. What a big heart you've got, Father dear." Now, she's not stammering anymore. She's not stuttering anymore. Now she says, "My head's on your heart, and I can hear it going." And she realizes that her father has got such a big heart, and she is so readily calling her father, "Father dear." So this is a very good ending, a very nice ending Catherine Mansfield has given us. And we are very grateful to her, Catherine Mansfield, that the story ends with an understanding between the father and the daughter. We realize that the father is not harsh as he seems. There are people of different characters now. They don't know how to show their love and concern. They are very hard and tough. Perhaps Kezia's father is one such father, very different from Mr. MacDonald, who has time and who gives his time to play with his children. But Kezia is not regretting that her father is not like Mr. MacDonald towards the end. She realizes the mistakes she has made, her own mistakes, and she comes to know how hard the father is working. And she is feeling very comfortable, and she is at ease in the presence of the father. So that's it. Please read the text, okay? And in the next class, we are going to discuss the question answers. Please be prepared. Read the text very thoroughly and be prepared for the discussion. Okay? Thank you. Goodbye.